Hi guys, welcome to D's Show and Tell. My name is Daniel and I'm going to be giving you my 1 month daily driver review of the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3. Before we get into it, I just want to give a little introduction about my channel. So I'm a tech lover and I've always got new toys delivered to my doorstep. I'll do my best to post a new video on a new toy every single week. Think of it as a show and tell. I'll try my best to keep my video nice and concise and also share with you all the quirks that I find along the way that I think a lot of reviewers tend to miss out on. I'll be covering new phones, audio, keyboards and all things computers. So if that is up your alley, do subscribe. But that's enough waffling, so let's get into it. Firstly, let's talk about pricing. I pre-ordered the Z Flip 3 on a plan with a local carrier here in Australia, which is equivalent to the $14.99 Australian dollar retail price. I pre-ordered the phone, and as a gift, Samsung does give you the Buds Live. I don't think I'll cover the Buds Live in a separate video. I will probably do it in together with the new Apple AirPods, just as a comparison. But back to the phone, I've seen the phone go for as low as $1,200 Australian dollars without the buds. It's definitely not the first time that I've seen an Android phone drop in price that quickly. However, I am somewhat surprised given the Z Flip 3 is quite a unique phone in my opinion. So what does it come with? In the box, you get all the standard paperwork, you get your warranty card, you get a little Samsung Care Plus, as well as a little quick start guide. There is no charger in the box, but you do get a USB-C charging cable. In regards to not having, the phone doesn't charge very quickly anyway, so a better charger isn't going to do you any good. Given this review is more about my experience using it over the past month, I'm not going to go through the specs, so I will put them up on the screen. That's something that I'll usually cover and go more in detail in a first look review. So let's talk about the exterior. I have the cream version, but the phone does come in phantom black, green and lavender. There are also Samsung online store exclusive colors, grey, white and pink. I think the color looks very similar to the Pixel 2 Panda color. So the rails and the hinge are a metallic color. They're cold to the touch, so I assume that it is a metal. And just doing a walk around the phone, on the side we've got a SIM card tray which does take a nano SIM. The phone does take an eSIM as well, so you can run this in dual SIM mode. At the bottom, you've got your microphone, you've got the USB-C port, you've also got a bottom-firing speaker. If you open up the phone, you'll see that the earpiece is a speaker as well, so it does work in stereo. Over to the right side, we've got your volume rockers. We also got the power button, which does also work if you hold down as a Bixby button, but you can change that. But that was really funny, really cheeky of you, Samsung. And you've got the hinge. So let's talk about that front screen. It's a 1.9 incher. It's got clock and widgets, which can be reordered. There are quite a few different clock faces, as well as the ability to customize the colors behind it. What I really like as well is that the widgets can be reordered inside the settings menu, so definitely worth checking out. Finding the phone now, you get a 6.7 incher. It's 120Hz Super AMOLED display, supports HDR10 Plus with 1200 nits peak brightness, which is definitely an improvement over the previous Z Flip. I found it bright enough. The only time that it wasn't bright enough was when I was on the toilet watching Squid Game and I had the heat lights going, but your mileage may vary. It's got an infinity punch-out display and also a PET screen protector, which I've been told that you should not remove. In regards to that punch-out display, it is a lot smaller than the first generation infinity punch-out displays when I compare it with my former S10e, which is great. And onto that flip mechanism, it feels good, it's linear in resistance, and it can stay open at any angle. So you can have it landscape freestanding, as well as fold in half portrait ways. One thing about the flip is that it does not shut flush. It has a bit of a thigh gap, which in this case is probably not desired. Dust and other nasties do tend to get stuck in that crease, as you can see here. And about that folding crease, I don't think it's a big deal. Honestly, when you're using a phone of this size, it's a 6.7 incher, just as a reminder, you tend to be scrolling on the bottom half of the phone anyway when using it. And when you're watching media, you're not going to be focusing on that crease anyway. So honestly, the only time you're going to notice it if you actually run your finger over it, but who's going to go out of the way to do that? And now, can you actually flip this creamy beast open with one hand? You can, but it's not a very good experience. So it feels as if you're just digging your thumb underneath into the PET screen protector, which is not a great feeling. And because of that linear resistance, it's not a very easy flip open. If it wasn't linear and there was a spring load towards the last portion of opening up the phone, then that might actually solve that problem. But obviously you lose a lot of the benefits of having that linear resistance that I was speaking about earlier. So I've used the phone for about a month now, so I'm just going to share my general comments and findings. The hinge has held up pretty well, but very occasionally when taking it to water or if I haven't opened it in a while, there's a bit of a creak. It's quite minor. It sounds like somebody's got arthritis, to be honest, but otherwise no loss in resistance. Now, wireless chargers is a big thing that I noticed. So when I bought the phone, I did not think about this at all, but standing wireless chargers don't work very well with this phone. And that's because the Z Flip 3 is broken up into two compartments, the top half and the bottom half. The wireless charge cords are in the bottom half of the phone, and because normal standing wireless chargers tend to have their cords up in the middle portion of the charger, it just doesn't reach it. So that means you've got to be really careful when buying standing wireless chargers. There are ones that are adjustable that can allow you to charge your phone on them, but otherwise pad style wireless chargers are going to work no problem. And the same thing's going to apply to NFC payments, though obviously it's not really a negative in this case. The NFC payments are at the bottom half of the phone, but luckily you can make payments without even folding your phone open. All you got to do is unwake it from the front screen. Neat. You can answer calls on the front screen, which works great. It automates to the speaker function, but if you do have your wireless earbuds connected by Bluetooth, you can answer them using them. And while you're on the front screen, you can also access Google Assistant. I've tried a few commands as well as my routines, and they seem to all work fine. Hey Google, read my last message.
You've got a new text from please subscribe. Nobody is going to watch your videos, Daniel.
Ouch.
Do you want to reply?
No thanks.
That was the last one.
Though it does constantly ask me to open up my phone to do more things, but I don't think I've ever had to do it. Let's talk about accessories for a second as well. So you're going to be careful with purchasing a front cover screen protector. The first one that I got was just a big flat piece of plastic, which didn't accommodate for the camera bump, and therefore it just did not fit flush. The next one I got had them in two pieces, and I thought that, this should be my problem solved. But again, that camera bump piece just kept falling off. So in the end, all I've got is just a rectangle piece over the main cover screen. So you know what? Just don't bother. And with watching media with the phone folded out, you can watch it in portrait or in a balanced landscape way, but the kickstand is still my preference. It just works better. You have it at the right angle when it's facing you. It doesn't have to sit awkwardly, somewhat half open or a quarter open. It just works. The phone also uses Android 11, One UI 3.1.1. So just as a comparison, I whipped out a very old Galaxy S8 just to see, how has this world progressed since, 2017? No, 2018, I think. So the Galaxy S8 runs Android 9. It's very similar in terms of use. There are some slight improvements and additions. There's dark theme, waking up can be double tap now anywhere on the screen rather than just on the home screen. But the rest of it, honestly, just wasn't that noticeable day to day. That's not necessarily a bad thing though. It means that there is no learning curve to use this phone if you came from another Samsung device or most other Androids for that matter. And I'm happy there isn't a dedicated Bixby button, but by default, Wake Bixby was actually holding down the power button rather than turning off the phone. Nice try, Samsung, but not happening. And just onto the cameras, it's unchanged from the original Flip. On the back, you get a 12 megapixel f1.8 wide angle shooter and 12 megapixel f2.2 ultra wide. The selfie camera is a 10 megapixel with an f2.4 aperture. Here are some photos and videos that I took on the Z Flip 3. Generally speaking, photos look great, and even in low light, they've done a decent job in capturing detail. But by all means, they are not class leading. But I also don't expect the general consumer to purchase a phone expecting that. If I'd make a comparison of camera performance, it's probably in line with a flagship from about 2 to 3 years ago. And if having a really good camera is really important to you, you could always just get an S21 Ultra, which is the same price as this phone. Bottom line, it'll take any photos and videos fine, and you won't be disappointed with it, but you're not going to be blown away with it either. So let's just talk about performance now. This phone is powered by the Snapdragon 888, same chip as you would find in the S21, S21 Ultra, or any other Android flagship on the market at the moment. Thankfully, it's not the Exynos chip, which is usually found on Samsung phones from the Europe or Australian regions, which tends to be not as efficient as the Snapdragon from my personal experience using the S20, which just got hot, even just browsing the web, which is ridiculous. Day-to-day use, I've always run this in power save mode, which does limit its performance to 70%, which is great because it still runs Call of Duty and Asphalt 9 just fine. The first thing I noticed when running games was that huge screen real estate, and that field of view is just great. And those games just run easy, but obviously with the battery hit. And since we're on the topic of battery, it's a 3300 milliamp hour battery, which is quite small by today's standards, but that's probably due to the design of foldable phones having a battery in each compartment at the top and on the bottom. Charge speeds are also quite slow. It's a 15 watt fast charge and a 10 watt wireless charge. I mean, if you were to put that into perspective, Xiaomi's phones nowadays can charge up to 120 watts, so these numbers are quite low. But I guess it's all relative at the end of the day, since charge speeds are relative to the size of battery. So a 15 watt charge speed took me about an hour to get to 60% and an hour 45 to get to 9%. What I think is also a really great initiative is a new Protect Battery mode, which does limit the amount of charge for your phone up to 85%. And the aim of that is really to extend the life of your battery, as batteries do degrade over time. And that probably just leads me into my conclusion. If you play games or you're a heavy user, this phone is probably not for you. I regard myself as a medium user, so I browse, I listen to music, watch content on my phone, but I also work a day job where I've got a work phone, and I don't game on it. Have a look at my battery use in the last 7 days. I've used my phone in full every single day. And that's with power save mode on, which is a huge compromise. That means I always run the CPU at 70% performance, I lose 5G, and I'm running my screen at 60Hz. And those are the settings I would recommend to anyone who buys this phone that even suffers from the most minor of battery anxiety. It means for the most part, you'll be using this phone with a feature set which is comparable to a much cheaper phone. Think about my Galaxy S10e. It's actually very, very similar, just with the added fold functionality. And if you're big on photography, again, this is not for you. It'll take snaps of your goodies for those online strangers you send to just fine, but if you take any of your photography even the slightly bit seriously, you want to get the best color and detail of your goodies, you might want to go for a traditional flagship at the same price. But on the flip side, pun intended, who's this phone for? It's for the person craving for a smaller or pocketable phone. This phone fits so easily into my pocket, and you also get the benefit of folding it open for a well-sized 6.7 inches. That is a huge win for many. It's also for the novelty. There is nothing else on the market quite like the Z Flip 3. You could go for a Motorola Razr 5G. There's a benefit of a front cover screen with more functionality, but with a battery of 2800 mAh, you're just going to be running into the similar battery life problems, and specs are close to a mid-ranger. Not to mention, it will cost you the same 1,200 Australian dollars at the time of filming this. Understandably, if you're from the States, that might be a different story, but you know which Sheila I'm taking home. So 1 month later, what do I think of the phone? It ticks a lot of boxes that I want in a phone, but nothing's without its compromises. And luckily, it doesn't compromise in areas that are crucial for me. Though what I can tell you is that once that novelty wears off and that battery starts to degrade in life just a little bit, I can't say for sure if the Z Flip 3 will still share a space in my pants. If you like this review, give it a thumbing. I can take it on the chin, so if you do have any constructive critique, drop it below and I'll do better in my next one. So until next time, please come back. I beg you. I'm going to have more show and tell for you. See ya.